I decided to take my Infiniti G37 to the track and document how it went. I've always liked driving fast, and I've learned various racing techniques from reading the manuals that came with Gran Turismo and applying them to the real world. I taught myself heel-toe shifting, and always looked for the best line while taking turns on public roads. There's only so much you can learn at highway speeds. 3 years ago, I took my Infiniti to Oregon Raceway and had a blast. However, it wasn't my first time on a track. The first time I took a 350Z around PIR around 10 years ago in a novice class. Back then, after I was shown around the track, the instructor said he couldn't teach me any more than I already knew, so he let me go on my own for the last half of the day. I've also enjoyed renting a couple of supercars at places that do such things while on vacation, so it was time to see what can be had just a mere hour from my new place just north of Seattle. I knew I wanted to take my car to a local track, so I spent the winter planning any upgrades I needed based on what I remember happening at Oregon Raceway. So new Michelin Super Sports went on, 245, 4019s all the way around. I also put on new StopTech slotted rotors and Project Move street pads. The only thing I didn't get done was an oil cooler. These cars tend to get heat-soaked and go into a limp mode if the oil gets too hot, but that was on a checklist for later, so I'll just have to deal with it if it happens. I found that Proformance Racing School was doing an all-day lapping event, so I signed up, and since it'd been a while since I'd been on a track, and more importantly never been on this track, they had me take a few laps with an instructor. He started by driving my car around, showing me the corners, and now it was my turn.
Let it come out, don't bite. See, you feel the car kind of jump there? Right. You don't really want to feel that. Just let it come through that. You don't want to hold it tight. Just make it a slalom. You've got all that pavement to work with. Sure. The cone will be there. Drive out the end. Look at the apex. Get that downshift done a little sooner. Just stay relaxed here. Good, right there. There you go.
The instructor was very well spoken, and made his instructions very clear and timely. Obviously, there was a fair bit of rust to shake off, even after overtaking the Mustang. Now it's time for the first solo session. I was late getting out to the track entrance, so the track worker had to wait until there was a gap in traffic. I ended up catching a Proformance loaner car by the third turn anyway. After that, I had a lot of the track to myself. This was good because now I could get more comfortable with the corners, closer to what my car is capable of. Still not comfortable yet with the first turn. After all, if done properly, it looks like you're turning right into the other wall, but just barely miss it, so I'm taking that turn a little too late, and with not as much speed as I can. Looks like I was able to catch up with one of the 2 Dodge Challenger Hellcats that are in my group. I thought for sure I'd be the one getting passed by these guys today. But 700 horsepower doesn't do too much good if you aren't comfortable using it all. I'm sure he'll be on my tail later in the day. The Subaru is driven by a husband and wife team. The wife is in my session while the husband is in the advanced. Did I mention this track's in Seattle? Just to prove the stereotype that it rains constantly in Seattle, the Google image that comes up when you search for Pacific Raceways is a Porsche driving through a downpour. Today's forecast was supposed to be cloudy with 15% chance of rain in the morning. Looks like we're getting our 15% right now. With the rain coming down, the track cools off really quick and it starts to get a bit on the greasy side. I can feel my tires sliding out where they had no issues before.
Greasy.
Even still, I'm able to pass the Miata with ease. At the start of the next lap, I see a hanging yellow at the first two flag stations. I thought it was just warning me that the track was getting slick, which it was. But as I come around to the start of turn 3, I see a waving yellow. Moments later, I see why. A Carrera 4S Turbo had been a bit too aggressive at the slowest part of the track and spun out facing the wrong way, slightly off the track. I clear the corner without adding any secondary incidents and proceed with the rest of the lap. But just a couple of turns later, everyone got black flagged and had to come off while they tended to the poor Porsche. Apparently it wouldn't start even though they had no physical damage. It ended up never even starting again and they had to tow it all the way home. Didn't end his day though. He reappeared in a new white BMW 328. However, it did end our session. Surprisingly, the forecast was spot on, and after the advance had their go, we were back on it, this time with a pretty dry track. I was hoping to play with this BRZ, but there wasn't a big enough gap, so I had to wait. As I enter the track for this session, I have one of the 3 laps of the day where I'm not inhibited by a slower car. I happen to be not behind one, but both of the Hellcats. Those things sure sound mean when they get on it. I'd been averaging approximately 2 minutes per lap while dealing with traffic, but this clean one ended up being about 7 seconds faster at a minute 52. I'm starting to get a little bit more confident in the turns. So confident, my traction control tries to reel me in, so I promptly turn it off mid-corner. Well, I guess we found out which of the two Hellcats is wishing to push their car harder. It was very interesting to see the variety of cars that showed up. There were BMWs of all sorts to be found. I can see why these older BMWs are popular track cars. This was an older lady that had this car completely stripped down to the bare metal and was flying through the turns. That's right, folks. You can totally bring your bone stock Honda Civic to these events. While the BMW was fast through the corners, she eventually let me by. With over 20 cars on the track at any given time, passing became pretty frequent. Oh look, it's the BRZ from the start. Too bad the session was over. Maybe next time. It was now lunchtime. We had an hour break, so I thought I would see what the advanced people were up to. There were a really good mix of cars. Exotic ones, classic ones. This vet ended up nearly in the wall at this exact corner. He was a young guy and didn't quite know how to handle its power. There was a pair of racing Mustangs as well. I've not seen too many Lamborghinis in person on a track, but I'm pretty sure that giant flames out the back aren't normal. People thought it was turbocharged and running on race fuel. He ended up blowing a tire going around turn 2 and had to be towed away. Didn't look like he hurt it though. The next session, people really started to get into the groove. The very first lap is another minute 52, with one car slowing me down just for a bit after turn 3. Boy, I sure have this Hellcat's number. I was shocked I was able to pass him 4 times during the day. After that, it was traffic. After traffic. After traffic. I kind of felt sorry for this guy. He had a lot of work done to his SS. He said it was putting down about 400 to the wheels. But he was so cautious that he barely broke 100 miles an hour. I'd give him a bit of slack since it was his second time on the track, but I've been over 100 miles an hour in my old SER without even thinking about it. More traffic. Remember the guy in the Porsche that spun out? Well, here he is. As we moved to the 5th session, I changed the viewpoint of the camera to see how close to the apex I was getting. I started behind the Subaru. After this pass, I ended up lapping her by the end of the session. I really like my exhaust. Looks like I could have been closer to the apex, but not by a whole lot. Pretty sure that's as close as I want to get to this one. Did I mention I love my exhaust? This next part was probably the most thrilling part of the day. I passed this BMW 2002, and for the first time I don't lift on the first turn to reach my highest speed of the day, which is just under 130 miles an hour. You could say I had a little bit more motivation to go faster in that section. Apparently, the endurance spec racing Viper had decided to take a few laps with the intermediate folks to do some testing. I did not think that that would be something I'd be seeing in my rearview mirror today. That lap ended up being the second fastest of the day. After passing 10 different cars on this session, I finally catch up to the cars that are more in my league, an M3 and a Cayman. However, our fun was put to a halt because the checkered flag came out and we had to come in. It was just as well. My engine was getting heat soaked and I could feel I didn't have the power I used to above 6,000 RPMs. Huh. I wonder if Porsches are a popular choice to bring to the track. The final session of the day arrived and my instructor wanted to see how I was doing, so he hopped in. My first lap is behind the black Hellcat being followed by a brand new Carrera 4S Turbo, so I had all the track I could get, and it ended up being my fastest lap of the day at a minute 46 with a top speed of 133. All in all, this was an extremely fun day, and I'll definitely be doing it again. Now that I have a baseline, I can take this and improve upon it. Apparently, the high-power racing cars can do this track in a minute 30, so there's easily a few seconds to be had with my setup. After that, the next step is to add more power and try it again. Well, hope you enjoyed this look into what a track day is like up here. I'm sure I'll be posting something like this as often as I can. Now, to find the money to be able to keep doing this.